Hello guys, and welcome in this last part of this tutorial about how to create a custom push button which actually plays an animation. Okay, so far we created the push button animation and a custom timer class to handle the animation. Okay, so now the last step we have to do is this one. So we see that here we have two animations. One when we click the first time, our character is walking forward, and when we click again is walking back. Okay, because it's triggering two different animations. In this case I'm using the same animation but just reversed. Okay, so basically just flip the frame in order to get a walk forward or a walk reversed. Okay, so we are going to do that in this class, because if I run the widget we did so far, we just have a walking forward. Okay, so for us it's going to be really easy to implement that. It's not going to require not much code at all, because we did the class in a smart way, basically, where a lot of stuff is already done for us, so we don't need to implement much. Okay, we just need to differentiate or specialize the behavior. Okay, so we are going to create an animation button on off, which inherits from animation button. Again, in the init is really simple. We just need the parent and animation button init. We're going to call the parent init, just passing the parent, and that's all we need. So now we are already able to change from animation button to animation button on off, our main function. Now, if I run that, see everything as before, but it's a child class, so an inherit class. So now we see the inherited class does everything the parent does. Everything is initialized correctly, the timer, everything, the frames, everything is working fine. So we don't need to store any of the parameters like frames and everything, because that is being initialized everything in the animation button init. So we already have everything. What we need to store is a couple of new attributes. Okay, so we are going to store in two different places the down frames and the up frames. Okay, and it's the same things as frames, and I'm going to explain you why we do that in a second. Okay, and then we need to store the toggle state of the button. So basically we say, okay, you pressed it already, so if you click it again, we are going to kick up the up frame function, the up frame animation rather than down frame. Okay, and vice versa. So, and last things we're going to do, we are going to connect the end repeat to a swap function. What's the swap function? So since the animation button is going to loop always to the attribute __ frames, we are storing our stuff in two different arrays, because I just want to cache them once, and then I don't want to load them again. If I store everything in _frames, means that I have to load the frames once and then reload again every time I switch, and that can be really heavy. So what I do, I cache the frames in two different variables, and then I make the variable __ frames pointing to up frames or down frames based on what I need. Because you know that in Python, when you set a variable equal to another variable, you are not copying the value, you're not duplicating the value, you're basically saying to the variable, point to this memory. Okay, so if you are C++, what I'm basically doing, I'm switching a pointer. I'm telling my variable to look in two different locations in our memory. Okay, so it's efficient. I'm not duplicating data, I'm not reloading data. I cache the data once, and then I just tell Python dynamically, you find the data here or here. And doing it this way, I don't have to change the behavior of the base class at all. So how the animation gets kicked off and everything, that's already set up for us. We don't have to do that. It's really nice and simple to do. Okay, so the only things we have to do is create two functions, which are set down frames and set up frames, which is equal to set frames. The only thing that changed is where we're going to store the frames. Instead of underscore frames is underscore down frames or up frames. Okay, if we check the parent class, remember set frames is exactly the same. Okay, but we store the stuff in underscore frames. Instead now, base is if it is up frames or low frames or up frames or down frames, we set that in different variables. Okay, then what I'm going to do, I'm setting the frames, but I'm also calling a custom function init frames. So basically here I'm going to tell underscore frames which frame to use, if up frames or low frames. Okay, so let's implement this function. Here we go. So def frames is really simple. Okay, the only thing it does is check if toggle is set to false. It means that our button has not been pressed, so we need to use the down frames. Okay, instead, if it has been toggled, we need to use the up frames. Okay, so here I'm just telling where to point, and I'm using this um, sorry these set frame data uh, function, which is actually we are going to implement in the basic in the base class. And this function basic, what is going to do is going to take the data and store them in underscore frames. Okay, you might wonder, why do we do that in the base class? Well, the reason is simple. It's actually, it was a bug. It was hard for me. It took me a little to find. Because if here in the init frame function I'm going to do something like that, self dot underscore frames, and I set that equal to set down frames, you might think, okay, everything is cool, I'm done, I'm pointing underscore frames to underscore down frames. But you are actually not doing that, because underscore frames is not what you think it is. Think a little. What is underscore frames? Is a private variable, okay? Means that the only base class itself can have access to that. Okay? If I try to print underscore set frames before setting it, it's gonna throw me an error because it says, hey mate, it doesn't exist because it's a private variables. Okay, so here what I'm basically doing, I'm creating another underscore frames function which is private to the child class. So basically they have the same name, but they actually have different addresses, so I'm pointing to different stuffs. So in order to access the right underscore frames, I need to do that in the base class. Okay, and that's why we're going to implement a I'm messing around with the other IDE. Here we go. We're going to implement a protected function called setData, which is really simple. The only thing it does, it takes the data we want and set them to underscore frames. So we are passing the variable, and it's gonna set the address of this variable in underscore frame, which is the one we want because it's on the base class. Okay, I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know. I will try to explain that again in a more easy way. Okay, but just remember, it's all a matter of private variable, because I'm basically trying to set a private variable on the base class which I don't have access to. Okay, I'm just creating a new one. Okay, so now everything is done. We are setting automatically which frame we want to see. The last things we're missing is the swap. Okay, so the swap function, again, what it does is going to change the toggle state of the frame. Okay, so let's see what this swap function does. It's going to check if the toggle is equal to false, it's going to set it to true, and vice versa. And then we are going to call the initFrames function. That what it does, based on the toggle value, is going to set correctly which value to display. Okay, so first of all, let's see if it works. So what we need to do here is to load the frames, which we are not doing right now. So we're going to change a little our script. So we are going to load both the set down frames and the setup frames. You see, I'm using the same list. The only things I'm doing, I'm reversing the list. Okay, so let's kick out the script. Everything works, didn't give any error. Let's see if it works. First animation work, other animation works perfectly. So now let's do a quick recap and let's try to understand what's going on here, all the different steps. Okay, so I click the button, it starts the frames, and so basically it's displayed them. Okay, then when the timer is done, it's gonna fire the end repeat, which the end repeat is gonna call the swap function. The swap function changes the state of the toggle, means that you click the button and means that we toggle that, and we're gonna set the toggle to true because at the first run toggle is equal to false, means we're setting that to true. Okay, means it's already been clicked once. And then we call the init frame. The init frames is going to set which frame we want to display. So here is checking if toggle is equal to false. Toggle equals to false means button has not been pressed. In our case, it has been pressed. So we go into the else. So we want the up frame. So basically the animation which set the button back up. In this case, it's just a walk, but you get the idea, okay? So you see, we are dynamically switching a pointer to which data we want to display. And if we click again, toggle is equal to true, so we're gonna set it to false, and we're gonna swap the frames again. Okay, so you see, which seriously like 10 line of codes, if you remove, sorry, like 15 line of codes, if you remove the comments, we change the behavior of our class to do something quite different. In the same way, you might want to do like a needle function, so a needle animation, so something which is run until you click the button. I don't know, in this case it can be the guy standing, I don't know, looking around in a loop, and this is staying there until you click it, and when you click it the guy start walking. Okay, so just an example. If you want to do that, it's going to be quite simple. You're going to need a dedicated timer for the idle function. This basically keeps run forever and ever and ever and click until you click the button. And when you do that, you stop the timer and you kick the other timer. Okay, so by now you should have the idea how to do that. Okay, so this is the functions, all the classes we implemented, the 2 classes we implemented, actually 3. So I hope everything is clear. If it's not, feel free to ask questions in the comments, everything. So like the video, share it around, and have fun with that. Okay, see ya next time, guys. Bye bye.